Your mind is a fortress, but who holds the keys? Marcus Aurelius once observed that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. In a world that feels increasingly chaotic, our emotional reactions often feel just as turbulent. Yet the ancient Stoics developed a series of profound blueprints, not just for weathering these storms, but for mastering them from the inside out. This is not abstract philosophy. By the end of this, you will possess a clear set of tools to forge an unbreakable resolve. We will uncover how to distinguish what you can control from what you cannot, how to mentally rehearse adversity to disarm its power, and how to create a crucial space between an event and your reaction. These are the same methods that guided emperors and slaves toward tranquility. What does true emotional control look like to you? How much of your daily stress comes from trying to control the uncontrollable? This single question lies at the very heart of the Stoic blueprint for emotional mastery. The ancient teachers called this the Dichotomy of Control, a simple yet profound sorting mechanism for your entire life. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, opened his manual for living, the Enchiridion, with this very idea. He wrote that some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. Our own judgments, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions are within our power. Everything else, from our reputation and our wealth to the actions of other people and the outcomes of our efforts, is not. Your peace of mind depends entirely on remembering this distinction. When you pour your energy into what you cannot command, you are fighting a battle you are guaranteed to lose, and that constant struggle is the source of so much anxiety and frustration. Think about a common modern stressor like a job interview. You can spend days agonizing over whether the hiring manager will like you or whether another candidate might be more qualified. This is a recipe for sleepless nights because you are focused entirely on the outcome, which is outside your control. The Stoic approach is radically different. It directs your energy solely toward what is within your power. You can meticulously prepare for the interview. You can research the company. You can practice answering questions clearly and thoughtfully. You can choose to be punctual, polite, and engaged. Once you have done all that, the final decision is no longer your burden to carry. You have done your part, and the rest belongs to the world. This shift in focus is not passive resignation. It is the most active and empowering choice you can make. It frees you from the weight of external demands and places you firmly in command of your own inner citadel. So take a brief moment and bring to mind 3 things that are currently causing you worry. It could be a strained relationship, a financial concern, or a goal you feel is slipping away. Now, mentally place each one on this simple spectrum. Is your worry centered on an external event, another person's feelings, or a final result you cannot guarantee? Or is it focused on your own judgment about the situation, your chosen response, or the actions you can take right now? This act of categorization is the first practical step in building your unbreakable resolve. It is how you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming the architect of your own tranquility. By clearly seeing what is yours to manage and what is not, you reclaim a profound inner authority. The Stoics had a counterintuitive practice for building fortitude, one that appears to be pessimism, but is in fact a profound form of psychological armor. They called it Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is not about expecting the worst to happen out of a sense of doom. It is about vaccinating your soul against future misfortune by exposing your mind to a weakened form of it in advance. Think of it like a fire drill. You do not conduct a fire drill because you believe the building will burn down. You do it so that if the alarm ever sounds, your body and mind know exactly what to do, and panic is replaced by purposeful action. The Stoic philosopher Seneca was a master of this. In his letters, he would regularly rehearse the potential loss of his wealth, his status, and even his own life. He would argue that by periodically living as if these losses had already occurred, he was not plagued by the fear of losing them. He wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and this practice is the cure for that specific suffering. Let us apply this to a modern scenario. Imagine you are about to have a difficult conversation with a family member. The anxiety leading up to it can be paralyzing. A premeditatio malorum exercise would have you sit quietly and mentally walk through the worst-case outcome. You would visualize the other person becoming angry, saying hurtful things, and the conversation ending in a stalemate. But here is the crucial Stoic twist. You do not stop at the disaster. You then visualize yourself responding not with anger or hurt, but with calm, listening intently, and maintaining your own dignity regardless of their words. You see yourself surviving the encounter with your inner peace intact. By doing this, you drain the future event of its power to shock you. You have already faced the monster in the safety of your own mind and discovered that you can endure it. So take a moment and bring to mind a future event you are apprehensive about. It could be a presentation at work that you fear might go poorly, or a personal goal you worry you will fail to achieve. Now close your eyes and mentally walk through that feared scenario. See the details unfold, but then watch yourself navigating it with a steady heart and a clear head. How does it feel to know, deep in your bones, that you can handle this? This mental rehearsal is how you build a resilience that life's unexpected blows cannot easily fracture. Emotions feel immediate and all-consuming, but the Stoics taught a method to create space. They called this cognitive distancing, the practice of deliberately stepping back from your own immediate experience to see the bigger picture. When you are caught in a wave of anger or anxiety, the event feels enormous, as if it is the only thing that matters. This technique shrinks it back down to its true size. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was a devoted practitioner of this. He would regularly remind himself to take a view from above, to look down at human affairs from a great height. From that cosmic perspective, he saw the vastness of the earth, the countless cities and people, and the brief, fleeting nature of any single human drama. He wrote that from above, you can see how all the quarrels and struggles are so petty, and you realize how many have come before you, fought the same battles, and were forgotten. This is not about becoming cold or detached from life. It is about gaining the clarity that comes when you are no longer drowning in the details. Consider a moment of road rage. Another driver cuts you off, and a surge of anger grips you. Your heart pounds, your hands tighten on the wheel, and the entire world shrinks to that one car and your reaction to it. Now apply the view from above. Imagine you are floating high above the traffic, looking down on the scene. You see your car, you see their car, you see hundreds of other cars all moving along their own paths. From this vantage point, the other driver's action is not a personal insult, but a single minor event in a vast, flowing system. Your own anger appears as a small, temporary flicker. The situation has not changed, but your relationship to it has been completely transformed. Or take a conflict at work. A colleague criticizes your idea in a meeting, and you feel a hot flush of embarrassment and defensiveness. The view from above asks you to see the entire office building, every person in their cubicle with their own ambitions and insecurities. You see the meeting room as just one small box, and the criticism as one sentence spoken in one moment of one day. This does not make the feedback irrelevant, but but it strips away the emotional charge that prevents you from evaluating it rationally. So think back to a recent time when you had a strong emotional reaction. Perhaps an argument with a loved one or a moment of frustration over a missed deadline. Now replay that scene in your mind, but this time watch it from a distance, as if you were an observer on a hill looking down. How does the significance of the event shift when you see it as part of a larger tapestry? This mental space is the birthplace of true choice, where you decide your response instead of being ruled by your first impulse. What if every obstacle in your path was secretly a gift, placed there for your ultimate benefit? This is the radical heart of the Stoic principle known as Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. It is the final, most profound step in mastering your emotions, moving beyond mere acceptance to a genuine embrace of everything life brings you. The Stoics believed that the universe is a rational, interconnected whole, and that every event, no matter how challenging, plays a necessary role in its grand design. To wish for something different to have happened is to argue against reality itself. The philosopher Epictetus, who knew immense hardship, put it plainly. Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, he advised, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go well. Centuries later, Friedrich Nietzsche would capture the same spirit with his declaration that Amor Fati must be his formula for human greatness. This is not passive resignation. It is the ultimate act of empowerment where you transform adversity into the very fuel for your growth. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. When his laboratory, filled with years of research and prototypes, was destroyed by a devastating fire, he did not collapse in despair. He was witnessed watching the flames and reportedly told his son, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." In that moment, Edison was practicing a form of Amor Fati. He saw the catastrophic loss not as an ending, but as a forced and necessary clearing of the slate, an opportunity to rebuild without the weight of past errors. In a modern context, imagine being passed over for a promotion you worked tirelessly to earn. The initial sting of rejection is real. The standard reaction is bitterness, a narrative of unfairness that can poison your attitude and future performance. But Amor Fati asks a different question. What if this rejection is a gift? What if it is saving you from a role that would have stifled your true talents? What if it is the necessary push to finally update your resume, to look elsewhere, or to start the business you have always contemplated? The obstacle becomes the catalyst for a journey you were meant to take all along. So bring to mind one current difficulty you are facing. It might be a personal loss, a professional setback, or a persistent source of frustration. Now, challenge yourself to reframe it not as a curse, but as a crucial piece of your training. How is this situation forging a greater strength in you? What door might it be closing so that a better one can open? Loving your fate is how you stop fighting the current of life and learn to swim with its powerful, purposeful flow. What if you could intercept a negative thought before it becomes a destructive emotion? There is a critical checkpoint in the mind that the Stoics identified, a moment of supreme leverage they called the discipline of Assent. This is the practice of consciously pausing before you accept your first, raw impression of any event as the absolute truth. Your reactions are not automatic chains of cause and effect. Between the event itself and your emotional explosion, there exists a tiny, powerful space of choice, and this is where your freedom truly lies. Epictetus put it with stunning clarity. He said that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. The insult itself does not cause your anger. It is your immediate, unquestioned judgment that you have been disrespected which unleashes the storm. Consider the common experience of receiving critical feedback at work. An email arrives from your manager pointing out flaws in a recent project. The first impression that flashes through your mind is a judgment of failure, a story that you are not good enough and that your position is threatened. This initial impression carries a powerful emotional charge, one of defensiveness and anxiety. If you assent to it immediately, if you accept it as the whole truth, that emotion takes over. You might fire off a defensive reply or spend the rest of the day in a cloud of worry. The discipline of assent asks you to catch that initial judgment at the gate. You notice the thought, "I have failed," but you do not grant it your belief. You hold it up for examination. Is this really true? Is the feedback entirely about my worth, or is it simply information about one specific project? Could there be a useful kernel in this that can help me improve? By creating this pause, you transform the entire dynamic. The criticism is no longer a personal attack you must fend off, but data you can choose to use or discard. You move from being a victim of the impression to being its master. Tomorrow, make this your practice. For just one day, commit to noticing your initial judgments without immediately believing them. When you are stuck in traffic and the thought arises, "This is a catastrophe," simply observe the thought. When a friend is late and the impression forms, "They do not respect my time," catch it and hold it. Do not fight it or suppress it. Just see it for what it is, a first draft of reality written by a fallible mind. In that simple act of noticing, you are not just managing your emotions, you are guarding the very gateway to your soul. Comfort is the enemy of growth, according to the Stoics. In a world that constantly sells us ease and convenience, this idea feels almost radical. Yet the ancient practitioners deliberately sought out minor hardships, not as a form of self-punishment, but as a training regimen for the soul. This practice is known as voluntary discomfort. Its purpose is twofold. First, it builds a resilience that makes you immune to the whims of fortune. Second, it actively cultivates a profound gratitude for the ordinary comfort you already possess. Seneca, a man of immense wealth, was a strong advocate for this. He would regularly set aside time to practice poverty. He would sleep on a hard bed, wear simple clothing, and live on a diet of plain bread and water. He wrote that we must learn to want little so that we may never want for much. By intentionally experiencing a scaled-down version of hardship, he stripped away the fear of it. He knew that if fate were to ever take his riches, his peace of mind would remain intact because he had already proven to himself that he could live without them. You can integrate this into your modern life with startling simplicity. It does not require a dramatic lifestyle change. It begins with small, deliberate choices. You might choose to take a cold shower for the final minute of your morning routine. You could decide to walk somewhere instead of driving, even if the weather is less than ideal. You might skip a meal intentionally, not for dieting, but to remind your body and mind that you can operate from a place of slight hunger and still be perfectly fine. Or you could spend an evening without any digital screens, reacquainting yourself with the quiet company of your own thoughts. Each of these acts is a small drill for your character. When you voluntarily step into a minor discomfort and discover that you are not only okay but perhaps even more alert and alive because of it, you rewrite your relationship with adversity. The next time an involuntary hardship arrives, an unexpected bill or a sudden change of plans, your reaction will not be one of panic. It will be one of practiced calm, because you have already faced a controlled version of that very feeling and emerged stronger. So this week, make a commitment to one small act of voluntary discomfort. What minor ease will you willingly forego? It could be as simple as leaving your coat behind on a slightly chilly day or turning off the heater in your car for a short drive. Observe the initial resistance and then observe the quiet strength that arises when you move through it. This is how you forge a spirit that does not break when life turns cold, but instead stands firm, grateful for the warmth when it returns and unshaken by its absence. In the grand scheme of the cosmos, our problems are remarkably small. Marcus Aurelius would often end his day by stepping outside his palace and gazing up at the night sky. He did this not for astronomy, but for a radical recalibration of his soul. He wrote in his private journal to remind himself that our lives are but a tiny fragment of time, and this little corner of the earth where we live, a mere dot. He would contemplate the infinite number of stars, the vast cycles of creation and destruction playing out over eons, and in that immense scale, his own anxieties about Senate politics or military campaigns would simply evaporate. This is the view from above in its most powerful form, a mental exercise that actively shrinks the ego and the artificial importance we assign to our daily struggles. Your looming deadline, a sharp word from a colleague, a social slight that feels like a deep wound, when held against the backdrop of a universe containing billions of galaxies, loses its capacity to dominate your inner world. It does not make your concerns meaningless, but it returns them to their proper, manageable size. To practice this, find a quiet moment and close your eyes. Begin by visualizing your own home, seeing it in detail. Then pull your mental camera back up through the roof until you see your entire neighborhood as a collection of tiny buildings and streets. Keep going. See your whole city laid out like a map, then your country, then the entire curve of the planet Earth, a beautiful blue marble hanging in the profound blackness of space. From here, all of human history has occurred on this single sphere. Every war, every triumph, every heartbreak has taken place right there. Now, bring to mind a current worry that feels heavy and immediate. Hold that worry in your mind and then look back at that distant, beautiful planet. See your problem there on that tiny dot. How much space does it truly occupy? This cosmic perspective is a profound antidote to anxiety because it reveals a simple, liberating truth. You are part of something unimaginably vast and ancient. Your life and everything in it is both precious and fleeting. So tonight or any night when a problem feels too large to carry, spend just 5 minutes under the real stars or contemplating this cosmic view from your own mind. Look up and let the sheer scale of it all quiet the noise. Then reassess that worry. Does it still demand the same amount of your energy, or can you now see it as a small part of a much grander, more majestic journey? The Stoics kept skulls on their desks as a daily reminder. This was not a sign of a grim fascination with death, but a powerful psychological tool known as Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to remember you must die. Far from being a morbid practice, this was their ultimate technique for breathing urgency and meaning into every single day. It is the final cornerstone in building an unbreakable resolve because it forces a radical clarity about what truly matters. Seneca wrote in his letters that we must prepare our minds as if we had reached the end of our lives, for we do not know when that moment will arrive. He argued that we hesitate, we delay, we tell ourselves we will start living fully tomorrow, while life races on at breathtaking speed. He said that the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. The thought of your own mortality, when held correctly, is not a dark cloud but a brilliant light that illuminates your priorities. It asks one simple, piercing question. If you knew your time was limited, what petty grievances, what vain ambitions, what trivial fears would you immediately discard? Suddenly, the rude comment from a stranger loses its sting. The pursuit of status symbols feels hollow. The fear of embarrassment that stops you from pursuing a passion becomes laughably insignificant. Your focus sharpens with laser-like precision on the people you love, the work that fulfills you, and the virtue you can embody right now. A modern equivalent of the Stoic skull could be a simple symbol set as your phone's wallpaper, a small stone you carry in your pocket, or a single word written on a note card on your mirror. Each time you see it, let it be a silent nudge, a recalibration. It asks you, is what you are doing right this moment worthy of your limited and precious life? It transforms procrastination from a bad habit into a betrayal of your own potential. So take out a piece of paper or open a note on your own device and write down your answer to this. If you knew with certainty that you had 1 year left to live, what would you do differently? What conversations would you finally have? What project would you begin? What grudge would you release? This list is not a Soma exercise. It is a map to the life you are meant to be living already, a life not of endless postponement, but of profound and immediate purpose. The secret to happiness is not getting what you want, but wanting what you have. This Stoic truth stands in stark opposition to a world that constantly urges us to seek more. Contentment for the ancient philosophers was not a passive state of having enough stuff. It was an active state of being, a profound peace that comes from virtue and the cultivation of your own internal resources. Your tranquility must never be held hostage by external conditions, by the size of your bank account, the opinions of others, or the ever-changing winds of luck. This is the art of contentment, the ultimate expression of an unbreakable resolve. Epictetus, drawing directly on his core teaching, made the distinction brilliantly clear. He said that happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some are not. Your own character, your integrity, your efforts, and your judgments are up to you. Everything else is not. He argued that if you think something you do not control is good or bad for you, then you are setting yourself up for disappointment. When you fail in your aims, you will blame both the gods and other people. But if you focus only on what is yours to govern, your own moral purpose, then no one can ever harm you or force you to feel upset. You will not blame anyone, and you will do nothing against your will. True happiness, therefore, is found only in one place within the boundaries of your own reasoned choice. Consider the modern pursuit of a new car. You work hard, you save, and finally you drive it off the lot. For a few weeks, a feeling of excitement and satisfaction follows. But soon, that feeling fades. You notice a newer model, a more luxurious brand. A small scratch on the door suddenly feels like a major flaw. The object you believed would bring lasting happiness has become just another possession, and the thirst for the next thing begins again. This is the endless cycle of desire, a treadmill that never leads to a destination. Now contrast that with the stable joy of character development, the satisfaction of keeping a promise to yourself, like waking up early to exercise, does not fade. The quiet pride you feel after acting with integrity in a difficult situation does not get scratched or become obsolete. The deep gratitude you experience for a simple moment of connection with a friend costs nothing and can never be taken from you. These internal achievements build a foundation of contentment that no market crash or change of fortune can shake. So take a quiet moment and look around the room you are in. Look past the physical objects. What are 3 non-material sources of contentment in your life right now? It could be the memory of a kindness you showed someone, the knowledge of a skill you have honed through practice, or the simple, steady rhythm of your own breath. These are the true treasures, the internal wealth that grows richer the more you appreciate it. This is the unshakable ground upon which a resilient life is built. That moment when you feel anger boiling up, what did the Stoics do? Seneca, who wrote an entire book on the subject, called anger a brief insanity. It is a fire that burns the vessel that carries it, a destructive force that harms you far more than the person you are targeting. The Stoic strategy for disarming it was not to suppress the feeling, but to use the sharp tool of reason to cut it off at the root. Anger, they observed, always begins with a specific judgment, a story you tell yourself about an event. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and the immediate, unquestioned judgment is, they disrespected me. A colleague dismisses your idea, and the internal narrative screams, they are trying to undermine me. Seneca advised that the very first sensation of anger, that initial heat, is an involuntary reaction. It is the second step where we give our assent to that initial impression and feed it with our own reasoning that we can control. He suggested imposing a delay, a mandatory pause before any reaction. In that space, you interrogate the judgment that sparked the fire. Ask yourself, is this person's action truly a deliberate personal attack, or could there be another explanation? Perhaps the driver who cut you off is rushing to a hospital, blinded by their own panic. Maybe your colleague is operating from a place of stress or incomplete information. This is not about making excuses for others, but about freeing yourself from a false and painful narrative. By questioning the story, you drain the anger of its justification. You realize that the insult exists not in the event itself, but in your interpretation of it. Recall the last time you were truly angry. What was the specific judgment you made in that instant? Was it that you were treated unfairly, that your plans were thwarted, that your value was not recognized? Now, hold that judgment up to the light of reason. How much of your suffering was caused by the event, and how much was caused by your unwavering belief in that initial, hot-headed story? This pause and question method is how you stop being a puppet to your passions and start being the master of your mind. Between an event and your reaction, there is a space. Master that space, and you master your life. This tiny, almost imperceptible gap is the very heart of Stoic emotional control, the fertile ground where a reasoned choice can grow instead of a raw, automatic impulse. The philosopher Epictetus gave us the essential instruction for this practice when he said, "Do not be carried away by the vividness of the impression, but say, 'Wait for me a little, O impression. Allow me to see who you are and what you represent. Allow me to test you.'" This is the Stoic pause, a conscious decision to interrupt the momentum of your own mind. It is in this brief hesitation that your true freedom resides, the power to choose your response rather than being chosen by it. Consider the heated email. A message arrives that feels like a personal attack, and a wave of indignation floods your system. Your fingers itch to type a sharp, defensive reply to prove you are right and they are wrong. This is the moment of critical leverage. The practiced Stoic does not hit send. Instead, they close the laptop, they walk away. They impose a mandatory waiting period, perhaps an hour, or even until the next morning. In that space, the initial heat of the impression cools. When you return to the email, you read it with new eyes. Perhaps you notice the sender was under immense stress. Maybe you see a kernel of valid criticism buried in the harsh tone. Almost certainly, you realize that a calm, professional response will serve your goals far better than a fiery retort ever could. The event was the same, but your relationship to it was transformed by a simple pause. Tomorrow, make this your single mission. Consciously introduce a 5-second pause before you respond to anything that sparks frustration. Before you snap at a family member, before you mutter a curse in traffic, before you send that text, in those 5 seconds, breathe. Remember Epictetus. Ask your impression to wait for you. That tiny sliver of time is the gateway to a more deliberate and peaceful existence. Freedom from passionate disturbances sounds like a cold and distant ideal, but the Stoics envisioned something far more profound. They called this state apatheia, a term often misunderstood as apathy or emotional numbness. Nothing could be further from the truth. Apatheia does not mean feeling nothing. It means not being ruled by your feelings. It is the cultivated ability to experience emotions without letting them hijack your reason, to feel the sting of anger without lashing out, or the pull of fear without retreating from your duty. This is the smooth flow of life the ancients described, where your inner peace remains unshaken not because the world is calm, but because your judgments are clear. Imagine two leaders facing a sudden financial crisis. The first is gripped by panic. His decisions are reactive, fueled by the desperate need to stop the fear. He might make sweeping cuts that damage morale or chase a risky gamble hoping for a quick fix. His judgment is clouded and his actions create more chaos. The second leader, practicing apatheia, feels the same initial jolt of alarm. He acknowledges the fear, but he does not grant it a vote. He creates a space, gathers his advisors, and assesses the situation with calm detachment. His decisions are measured, strategic, and focused on long-term stability, even if they are difficult. He is not free from feeling, but he is free from the tyranny of those feelings. This clarity is the ultimate resilience. So bring to mind one emotion that frequently clouds your own judgment. Is it frustration that makes you snap at loved ones? Is it anxiety that paralyzes you from starting an important project? Now, consider for a moment how apatheia would change your response. How would you act if you could hold that feeling in your hands, acknowledge its presence, but then set it gently aside to make your decision with a quiet and steady mind? This is not the suppression of your humanity, but the mastery of it, where your inner citadel stands firm against every storm. The Stoics ended their day with a powerful ritual of self-examination. This was not a time for self-criticism, but for honest, calm reflection, a way to close the day with clarity and purpose. Both Seneca and Marcus Aurelius were devoted to this practice. In fact, the very book we often turn to for Marcus Aurelius' wisdom, his Meditations, was never intended for publication. It was his private journal, a series of notes written to himself, reviewing his actions and reinforcing his principles. Similarly, Seneca's letters often read like a refined version of this evening review, where he would dissect his day's events and his reactions to them. The goal was simple yet profound: to identify where your emotions had overruled your reason, to acknowledge your missteps without drama, and to solidify the lessons learned so you could walk into tomorrow a slightly wiser person. To practice this yourself, you need no special tools, only a few quiet minutes and a simple 3-question format. First, ask yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I act with patience, courage, or integrity? This is not about ego, but about reinforcing positive behavior, showing your mind the path you wish to travel more often. The second question is, what could I have done better? Be specific and gentle. Did I speak harshly when I was tired? Did I avoid a necessary task out of fear? This is not an invitation for guilt, but for clear-eyed acknowledgement, the first step toward correction. Finally, ask, what did I learn? What did today's events, both pleasant and difficult, teach me about myself, about others, or about the world? This question transforms every experience, even the frustrating ones, into valuable data for your growth. Commit to this practice for just 3 nights. Sit with these 3 questions and write down your answers. You will be startled by the self-awareness that emerges. You begin to catch your own patterns, to see the subtle ways your judgments shape your reality. This nightly audit is how you actively sculpt your character, turning the raw material of daily life into the unbreakable resolve of a Stoic master. What is the purpose of a human life according to Stoicism? The ancient Stoics had a beautifully simple and profound answer, one that serves as the ultimate blueprint for a life of unbreakable resolve. They called it living in accordance with nature. This does not mean retreating to the wilderness. It means understanding our unique human nature and fulfilling its highest potential. The Stoics observed that our defining characteristic, the gift that separates us from other animals, is our capacity for reason. Our purpose, therefore, is to live rationally and virtuously. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, defined the good life as one lived in agreement with nature. Cicero later echoed this, stating that to live happily is to live in harmony with your own nature. This harmony is achieved when your thoughts, your actions, and your very character are aligned with reason and virtue. Our nature is not just rational, it is also deeply social. We are made for cooperation and community, not for isolation. To live according to nature is to recognize that we are part of a larger whole, and to act for the common good is as natural to us as breathing. Think of a tree. An oak seed grows into a mighty oak tree, not a willow. It fulfills its own unique nature. In the same way, a human being is designed to flourish through wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. When we act against these virtues, we are like a tree twisting itself into an unnatural, stunted shape, fighting against its own blueprint for growth. Now contrast two ways of living. One life is driven by irrational desires and aversions. It is a life spent chasing fleeting pleasures, avoiding any discomfort, and reacting to every external event with raw emotion. This person is like a ship tossed on a stormy sea, with no captain at the helm, completely at the mercy of the waves. The other life is guided by reason and principled choice. This person feels desires and fears, but they evaluate them. They ask, is this passion serving my nature, or is it enslaving me? They choose their actions based on what is right, not on what is easy. They are the captain of their own ship, navigating the same storm with a steady hand and a clear destination. So bring to mind one recent decision you made, perhaps from just yesterday or last week. It does not need to be a major life choice. It could be how you responded to a minor frustration, or how you allocated a spare hour of your time. Now, hold that decision up to the Stoic measure. Was it according to nature? Did it employ your reason, or was it a reaction to a raw impulse? Did it contribute to the common good, even in a small way, or did it serve only a narrow, self-centered interest? This simple, daily audit is how you align your life with its deepest purpose, transforming everyday moments into the building blocks of an unbreakable character. The Stoics saw themselves as citizens of the world, bound to others by an invisible thread of shared reason and a common fate. This profound sense of interconnectedness, which they called sympathy, was not a vague spiritual idea but a practical lens for viewing every human interaction. When you truly internalize that you are part of a single, universal community, the petty divisions that fuel so much of our anger and judgment begin to lose their power. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his private writings. He wrote that we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. To act against one another is contrary to nature, and it is acting against one another to be resentful and to turn away. He would meditate on the fact that all of us share the same fragment of divine reason, that we are all subject to the same laws of nature, and that in the end we will all return to the same source. This perspective transforms a stranger from an anonymous other into a fellow traveler on a difficult road. Consider the person in your life you find most difficult, the one whose actions consistently irritate or offend you. The standard reaction is to build a case against them in your mind, to see their behavior as a personal flaw or a targeted attack. Sympathy asks you to dismantle that case and instead build a story of understanding. Before you react with frustration, pause and consider their background. What hidden struggles might they be carrying? What fears or insecurities are driving their behavior? Perhaps the coworker who is always criticizing is terrified of being seen as incompetent. Maybe the family member who is perpetually negative is battling a deep, unspoken sadness. This is not about excusing poor behavior, but about understanding its origin. When you see the person as a product of their own pains and limitations, your anger often morphs into a form of compassion. The conflict is no longer a personal battle between you and them, but a shared human dilemma playing out between two imperfect people. Think of that individual you currently have tension with. For a moment, set aside your own grievance and try to see the world through their eyes. What burdens are they shouldering that you know nothing about? What past hurts might be coloring their present actions? This simple act of mental reframing does not require you to agree with them or surrender your position. It simply reconnects you to the shared humanity that your frustration had temporarily severed. In that reconnection, you reclaim your own peace, not by changing them, but by changing your understanding of the situation. Every barrier the world puts in your path is raw material for your growth. This is the active dimension of Amor Fati, moving beyond acceptance to a deliberate process of alchemy, where you transform life's heaviest stones into the very foundation of your strength. The Stoic mindset sees a challenge not as a blockade, but as a training ground meticulously designed to forge a more resilient and capable version of you. This is the unspoken heart of the phrase, "The obstacle is the way." The impediment does not stand in your path, it becomes your path. Think of a blacksmith working a piece of iron. He does not curse the hammer for striking the metal, nor does he resent the fire for its heat. He understands that these forces, which could so easily destroy, are in fact the essential tools that shape and strengthen the raw material. Your difficulties are that hammer and fire. The story of the inventor James Dyson is a perfect modern echo of this principle. He did not simply have a brilliant idea for a bagless vacuum cleaner. He endured 5,126 failed prototypes over the course of 15 years. Each failure was not a signal to quit, it was a data point, a lesson in what did not work, which inevitably guided him closer to what would. Every shattered model and every empty bank account became the fuel for his persistence. He was not avoiding the obstacle of failure, he was consuming it, using it as the necessary energy to power his long journey. His ultimate breakthrough was not a moment of luck, but the final step in a marathon fueled by obstacles. The obstacle was not the 5,000 failures, the obstacle was the way he learned to succeed. So bring to mind one current hindrance in your own life. It could be a financial limitation, a health issue, or a skill you find difficult to master. Now ask yourself not how to remove it, but how to use it. If this limitation is your raw material, what can you build with it? A financial constraint could force you to discover a more creative and efficient way of living. A physical setback could teach you a deeper level of patience and appreciation for small victories. A difficult skill could train your mind in the art of focused persistence. Brainstorm one single, practical way this very obstacle could be leveraged to your advantage. This mental shift is how you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start becoming the architect of your own unbreakable character. Are your desires serving you, or are you a slave to them? This question strikes at the core of another vital Stoic discipline, the careful management of what you want. So much of our inner turmoil does not come from the events of the day, but from the frantic, often unconscious, yearning for things that lie permanently outside our command. The Stoic teacher Epictetus identified this as the fundamental struggle. He taught that freedom is not secured by satisfying every craving, but by correctly directing your desires. It is the right desire for the right things, he wrote, and the right aversion to the right things. True liberty is wanting only what you can be certain to obtain, and aversion only to what you can reliably avoid. And what can you always control? Your own character, your intentions, your efforts, your virtue. Everything else is a gamble. When you passionately desire a promotion, you are tying your happiness to a decision made by other people in a conference room you are not in. When you desperately crave social admiration, you are handing the keys to your self-worth to the fickle opinions of the crowd. Each of these external desires is a chain, and the more you have, the less you can move freely. Consider the stark difference between desiring fame and desiring integrity. The desire for fame is a hunger for an external validation that you can never fully control. You might achieve it, but then you live in fear of losing it, constantly performing for an audience that can turn on you in an instant. It is a thirsty man drinking salt water. The desire for integrity, however, is entirely within your power. It is the quiet commitment to act honorably, to speak truthfully, and to keep your promises regardless of who is watching. This desire is a deep, reliable wellspring of satisfaction that no one can take from you. It requires no one's permission and depends on no one's judgment but your own. So take a quiet moment and bring to mind your own top 3 desires. What is it you find yourself consistently wanting? Perhaps it is a specific level of wealth, a particular relationship, or a certain reputation. Write them down, even if just mentally. Now hold each one up to this simple 2-part Stoic test. First, is this desire aligned with virtue? Does wanting this make me a more courageous, just, wise, and self-disciplined person? Second, and most crucially, is its fulfillment entirely within my control? If the answer to either question is no, you have located a source of potential future distress, a leak in your emotional fortress. This is not a call to abandon your goals, but to reframe them. Shift your primary desire from getting the promotion to doing work worthy of a promotion. Redirect your want from being loved to being loving and honorable in your conduct. In this subtle but profound shift, you reclaim your sovereignty, ensuring that your happiness remains an internal achievement, never an external reward. In a world of constant stimulation, the Stoics sought the clarity of quiet. They understood that the relentless noise of society, the chatter of crowds, and the demands of public life could drown out the one voice you most need to hear, your own inner guide. This deliberate retreat into silence and solitude was not an escape from responsibility, but a disciplined method for returning to it with renewed strength and perspective. It is in the quiet that you can finally take stock of your mind, untangle your judgments, and reinforce the walls of your inner citadel. Seneca wrote extensively about this necessity. He described solitude as the time when we are forced to converse with ourselves, to examine our own conscience and put our principles to the test. He believed that a person who can never bear to be alone must be in flight from a self they find unpleasurable company. To willingly seek quiet is to make peace with who you are, to build a relationship with yourself so solid that external validation becomes unnecessary. The modern equivalent of this ancient practice is strikingly simple yet profoundly challenging. It begins with a digital Sabbath, a designated period, perhaps one day each weekend, where you disconnect from all screens and notifications. The goal is not to be unproductive, but to be differently productive, to give your mind the space to wander, to create, and to rest without the constant pull of external input. On a smaller, daily scale, you can commit to a 10-minute silent walk. Leave your phone and headphones behind. Do not plan your route or your to-do list. Simply walk and observe the world around you, and more importantly, observe the thoughts that arise within you. You will quickly notice a mental chatter, a stream of worries and plans. The practice is not to stop this stream, but to sit on its bank and watch it flow by without jumping in. This builds the mental muscle of detachment. So your challenge is this: before this day ends, find 15 minutes for complete and undistracted silence. Sit in a room or step outside. Do not read, do not scroll, do not listen to music. Just be present with your own mind. What thoughts surface first? What anxieties make themselves known? And what quiet wisdom, usually drowned out, begins to whisper from within? This is not wasted time. It is the most productive investment you can make in the one asset that determines everything else, your unbreakable self. The Stoics had a secret weapon for making tough decisions, asking, what would the sage do? This was not an abstract fantasy, but a practical mental model for navigating morally ambiguous terrain. They envisioned the sage as a person of perfect wisdom and virtue, someone whose every action was guided by reason and aligned with nature. While they acknowledged that no human being could ever fully attain this ideal, it served as a crucial North Star, a constant guidepost for their own behavior. Epictetus encouraged his students to always have these two rules ready to hand. First, do only what the reason of your ruling faculty suggests for the benefit of human beings. Second, be ready to change your course immediately if someone sets you right. The sage embodies these rules, acting for the common good while remaining open to correction, free from the stubbornness of ego. Imagine facing a modern ethical dilemma at work. You discover a colleague is taking credit for your work on a shared project. Your initial, raw impulse might be one of anger and a desire for immediate confrontation or retaliation. This is where you pause and invoke the sage. You ask yourself, how would a person of perfect wisdom and virtue handle this? The sage would not be ruled by the heat of indignation. They would act with justice, not for revenge, but to correct a wrong and preserve the integrity of the team. They would choose a course of action that is both courageous and temperate, perhaps requesting a private meeting to present the facts calmly and clearly, seeking a resolution that upholds fairness without destroying a working relationship. Their primary concern would not be their wounded pride, but the truth and the health of the collective endeavor. Now bring this practice into your own life. Think of one person, real or historical, whom you consider a model of wisdom and integrity. It could be a respected mentor, a public figure known for their character, or even a composite of the best traits you admire in others. When you find yourself facing a difficult choice or a surge of frustration in the coming days, pause and consciously ask, how would this person of virtue navigate my current challenge? What action would align with their character? This simple question creates a powerful space between your impulse and your action, allowing you to choose a response that builds your own unbreakable resolve, one decision at a time. The Stoics knew that life is available only in the present moment. While our minds are often dragged into the regrets of yesterday or the anxieties of tomorrow, our actual power to act, to think, and to be virtuous exists solely in the eternal now. Everything else is a memory or a projection, a story we tell ourselves that has no tangible substance. Marcus Aurelius constantly drilled this into his own mind, writing that each of us lives only in this present instant. The rest of your life is either already lived or remains uncertain. He instructed himself to confine his attention to the present moment, to this specific, manageable point in time where your will can actually operate. This is not a mystical idea, but a practical one. Your ability to be courageous, to be just, or to be temperate does not exist in the future. You cannot be virtuous tomorrow. You can only choose virtue in the very next second you are given. Consider the mental state of someone worried about a major presentation scheduled for next week. Their body is physically here, perhaps sitting at a desk, but their mind is a week away, trapped in a theater of potential disaster. They are rehearsing stumbles, imagining critical faces, and feeling the full weight of a failure that has not and may never happen. This mental time travel is the source of their suffering, and it completely robs them of the power available in their current moment. The Stoic alternative is to firmly anchor yourself in what is real and what is yours to command right now. That same person applying this focus would pull their awareness back from that frightening future. They would note that in this present moment they are safe. They are breathing. They have the capacity to prepare one single slide, to research one more point, or to simply take a walk and clear their head. The future presentation remains an abstraction, but their current action is a reality they can master. So let this be a direct invitation. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, pause the narrative in your head for just 60 seconds. Take one deep, slow breath. Then, without judgment, drop your full attention into your immediate sensory experience. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. Listen to the most distant sound you can hear, and then the closest. For these few seconds, there is no past to regret and no future to fear. There is only this. This is the unshakable ground of the present, the only place where your unbreakable resolve can ever be built. Nothing in life is permanent, and the Stoics said this is a cause for peace, not panic. They saw the entire universe as a great flowing river, where everything is in a state of constant change and renewal. The early philosopher Heraclitus, who deeply influenced Stoic thought, captured this perfectly with his famous observation that you cannot step into the same river twice. The water has moved on, and so have you. To fight against this fundamental law of existence is to suffer, clinging to a moment that has already passed. Marcus Aurelius meditated on this daily, reminding himself that the universe is change, and our life is what our thoughts make it. When you internalize that all things are fleeting, your relationship with loss and uncertainty transforms. The fear of losing what you have, or the anguish over what is already gone, begins to loosen its grip. Your attachment to a static, unchanging reality is the true source of your pain, not the change itself. Consider the natural world. A brilliant autumn leaf does not cling to the branch in terror as its color turns from green to gold. It participates in the cycle, letting go when the time is right, making way for the new growth of spring. Or watch a child grow. You cannot freeze them at age 5, as perfect and adorable as they are. To try would be to deny them their future, their potential, their very life. We accept these cycles in nature, yet we so often rage against them in our own lives. We want our health to last forever, our relationships to never alter, our success to be permanent. But this is like demanding that the river stop flowing. It is a war against reality, and it is a war we cannot win. So bring to mind one thing you are deeply attached to right now. It might be your physical youth, a particular possession you cherish, or the current dynamic of a close relationship. Now hold that thought gently and apply the lens of impermanence. See this cherished thing not as a permanent fixture, but as a temporary guest in your life, here for a season. How does that shift in perspective change the quality of your attachment? Does the fear of losing it feel quite as sharp, or does a new, more spacious gratitude for its present existence begin to emerge? This is not a practice in cold detachment, but in profound appreciation for the precious, ever-changing flow of your own story. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something else is more important than that fear. The Stoics understood this distinction with perfect clarity. For them, courage was a cardinal virtue, a form of wisdom applied directly to situations of risk and apprehension. It is the inner strength that allows you to feel the knot in your stomach, the quickening of your pulse, and still choose the action that reason and integrity demand. Seneca wrote that sometimes even to live is an act of courage. He was not speaking of dramatic battlefield bravery, but the quiet, daily courage required to face down our own anxieties, disappointments, and the simple weariness of being. This virtue is the fuel for perseverance, the quality that lets you move through emotional and physical challenges without being derailed by the natural human instinct to retreat. The Stoic hero was not a fearless warrior, but a person who acknowledged the presence of fear and then rendered it irrelevant through right action. Consider the historical figure of Cato the Younger, a Roman senator whose defiance of Julius Caesar became a legendary example of Stoic courage. When Caesar's victory in the civil war was certain, Cato chose to take his own life rather than live under a tyranny he believed would destroy the Republic. This was not an impulsive act of despair. It was a final, deliberate statement of principle, a choice made with a clear and steady mind in the face of overwhelming political force. He felt the weight of that moment, the fear of death and the end of all he knew, yet he judged his commitment to liberty as more important. In a modern context, think of a whistleblower who risks their career to expose unethical practices within a powerful corporation. They undoubtedly feel a profound fear of retaliation, financial ruin, and social ostracism. The courageous act is not the absence of that fear, but the decision that the truth and the protection of others is a value greater than their personal security. Or consider a much more personal form of courage, like speaking honestly in a relationship where you fear the other person's reaction. The fear of conflict or rejection is real and visceral. Yet the courageous step is to value the authenticity and health of the connection enough to speak your truth with kindness, despite the trembling in your voice. So bring to mind one specific fear that currently holds you back. Is it the fear of failure that stops you from starting a new venture? Is it the fear of judgment that keeps you from voicing a unique opinion? Now identify one single, small step you could take that would be an act of courage in the face of that very fear. It does not need to be a life-altering leap. It could be sending one email you have been avoiding, having one difficult sentence of a conversation, or simply admitting to yourself what it is you truly want. This small act, this conscious choice to place a higher principle above a lower fear, is how you begin to forge a spirit that stands firm when everything within you screams to run. Before you ask for more, the Stoics advise, take stock of what you already have. This is the practice of gratitude, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a daily discipline for the soul. It is a conscious recalibration of your attention, a deliberate shift from focusing on what you lack to acknowledging the benefits you have already received. This simple act has the power to dissolve envy and cultivate a deep, stable contentment, because you cannot feel deprived while you are actively counting your riches. Marcus Aurelius began his private meditations each day with this very exercise. Before confronting the demands of an empire, he would write down the things he was grateful for, from the kindness of his teachers to the very roof over his head. He was not ignoring the world's problems, but fortifying his own mind with a foundation of abundance from which to meet them. He understood that a grateful heart is a resilient heart, immune to the petty grievances and comparisons that so often disturb our peace. You can build this same foundation. Start a simple morning or evening ritual. As you wake up or before you sleep, mentally list 3 specific things you are thankful for. Do not rush through generic ideas. Be vividly precise. It is not just my health, but the feeling of my lungs filling with air on a morning walk. It is not just my job, but the colleague who offered a supportive word yesterday. It is not just my home, but the warmth of the sunlight falling across the floor in a particular way. This specificity trains your mind to hunt for the good that is already present, transforming ordinary moments into gifts. So pause right here, take out a piece of paper or open a note on your device and write down 5 things you are genuinely grateful for in this very moment. They can be as fundamental as the device you are using to listen to this, or as profound as a loved one's smile. Feel the subtle shift in your inner atmosphere as you move from wanting to appreciating. This daily ledger of gratitude is how you build a life not on shifting sands of desire, but on the unshakable ground of what is already yours. Loss is inevitable, but despair is optional. The Stoics understood that grief is a natural response to love and attachment, a testament to the value of what we have lost. Their counsel was never to suppress the initial pang of sadness, but to prevent it from festering into a prolonged, destructive suffering that consumes your present and future. This is achieved not by fighting the feeling, but by guiding it with the steady hand of reason. The great teacher Seneca, in his profound letters of consolation to those in mourning, offered a crucial shift in perspective. He did not tell people to stop feeling. Instead, he advised them to actively remember the good times, to dwell on the gift of having had the person or thing in their life at all. He wrote that the comfort we seek is not in forgetting, but in grateful remembrance. We are not so powerless as to have received a benefit without being able to return it. We can repay a friend's kindness by holding them in fond memory. This practice transforms the narrative of loss from one of pure deprivation to one that includes richness and gratitude for what was. Consider the modern loss of a job you deeply valued. The initial shock and sadness are real. The standard reaction can be a spiral of bitterness, replaying the injustice and fearing the future. The Stoic approach would be to first acknowledge the sadness, then consciously pivot to gratitude. You would make a mental list or even write it down of all the skills you gained, the relationships you built, and the accomplishments you achieved in that role. You focus not on the door that has closed, but on the tools and experiences you now carry with you because that door was once open. The loss becomes integrated into your story as a formative chapter, not just an abrupt ending. The same principle applies to the end of a meaningful relationship or the passing of a loved one. The pain of absence is a raw human experience, yet we have a choice in how we house that pain. Do we let it become a dark room where we live in perpetual shadow, or do we allow it to be a gallery where we can visit and honor beautiful memories without being trapped by them? So take a quiet moment and bring to mind a past loss, large or small, that once caused you deep hurt. Now gently reframe that memory. What positive aspect can you pull from that experience? What strength did you discover in yourself because of it? What specific moments of joy or learning are you now able to appreciate precisely because that person or situation was part of your life? This act of grateful recollection is how you honor the past without being held captive by it, weaving the threads of loss into the resilient tapestry of your character. You can be a good person even if everyone thinks you are a villain. This is the liberating core of the Stoic distinction between character and reputation. Your character is your internal moral compass built by your choices and your virtues. It is the one thing that is truly your own. Your reputation, however, is nothing more than the collective opinion of other people, and that is a prize you can never fully control, no matter how hard you try. To tie your self-worth to it is to hand your soul over to a fickle and often mistaken jury. The philosopher Epictetus, who knew the sting of being undervalued as a slave, put it with brutal simplicity. He said that if someone calls you a donkey, you should not be troubled, and if they persist, do not bother trying to refute them. Your task is simply to be sure you are not one. The insult, if it is false, is their problem to carry, not yours. This is not about ignoring constructive feedback, but about freeing yourself from the exhausting anxiety of managing perceptions. Consider the modern obsession with a social media image. How much mental energy is spent curating a life that looks impressive from the outside? You post a photo, and your mood for the next hour swings on the number of likes it receives. A critical comment can ruin your entire day. You are living on an emotional roller coaster operated by strangers. Now contrast that with the profound peace of living by a private code. Your actions are guided not by what will get applause, but by what is right, just, and kind. You help a colleague not for the recognition, but because it is the decent thing to do. You tell the truth even when a lie would be more convenient. There is a quiet strength that comes from this alignment, a stability that no algorithm or opinion can disrupt. Your worth is no longer a question put to a public vote, but a settled fact known only to you. So your challenge for this week is to perform one single act that aligns deeply with your values, an act that no one else will ever see or praise. It could be as simple as refusing to engage in a piece of gossip when you are alone, or taking the time to write down 3 things you are proud of about your own character with complete honesty. Or it might be completing a difficult task with excellence, even though you know your boss will never notice the extra care you took. Feel the quality of that action. It carries a different weight, a pure satisfaction that exists entirely between you and your conscience. This is the foundation of an unbreakable resolve, built in the quiet spaces where your true character lives. The Stoics had a secret for giving their all without attachment to the result. It is a subtle mental maneuver known as the reserve clause, a silent addendum to every plan and every ambition. You pour your entire being into an endeavor, but you attach a quiet, internal phrase to the desired outcome, fate permitting or God willing. This is not a whisper of doubt, but a declaration of wisdom. It is the difference between clutching a fragile vase so tightly you fear it will break, and holding it with an open palm, appreciating its beauty while knowing it is not yours to keep forever. Seneca captured this spirit perfectly when he wrote that the wise man considers both what he purposes and what befalls him. He makes his plans, but he leaves something to the gods. Similarly, Epictetus instructed his students to undertake nothing without a reserve, without the condition, if nothing prevents. This practice is the ultimate integration of effort and equanimity. You are fully committed to the process, yet fully detached from a specific prize. Consider an athlete training for the Olympics. She wakes before dawn, follows a brutal training regimen, and dedicates years of her life to this single goal. The standard approach is to fixate on the gold medal, to tie her entire self-worth and happiness to that one moment on the podium. This creates a tremendous, brittle pressure. The Stoic athlete, however, trains with the same ferocious intensity, but her inner dialogue is different. My goal is to give my absolute best performance, fate permitting. She acknowledges that an injury, a bad call from a judge, or simply a better competitor on the day could intervene. This does not diminish her effort. It liberates it. She is no longer running for a medal she cannot fully control. She is running for the integrity of her own striving. The same principle applies to an entrepreneur launching a new business. He can work 80-hour weeks, develop a brilliant product, and craft a perfect marketing strategy. But if his success is conditional only on the business becoming a unicorn startup, he has built his emotional house on a fault line. The Stoic entrepreneur works just as hard. His goal is to build a company with integrity that serves its customers well, fate permitting. He understands that market shifts, economic downturns, or unforeseen competition are part of the landscape. His peace is not shattered if the outcome differs from his dream, because his primary commitment was to his own virtuous effort. So bring to mind one significant goal you are working toward right now. Say it aloud, or at least form the words clearly in your mind. Now, add those two simple words to the end of that statement. Fate permitting, feel the subtle but profound shift in your chest. The weight of a demanded result lifts, and in its place arises a quiet, steady confidence in your own capacity for dedicated action, regardless of what the world offers in return. These blueprints form a complete system for inner strength. You began by learning to sort your world with the dichotomy of control, separating your own actions from external outcomes. You then built resilience by mentally rehearsing adversity through premeditatio malorum, disarming future fears before they could take hold. You discovered the power of the Stoic Pause, that critical space between an event and your reaction where true freedom is found. And you moved beyond mere acceptance to actively loving your fate with Amor Fati, transforming every obstacle into fuel for your growth. These are not dusty theories from a forgotten time. They are a living toolkit forged in the fires of real human struggle, designed to help you master your emotions and construct an unbreakable resolve. The goal was never to become emotionless, but to become the steady captain of your own soul, no longer tossed by every passing storm. Epictetus offered a final, piercing insight into this freedom. He said that happiness and freedom begin with one principle: some things are up to us and some are not. The path to tranquility is paved by correctly managing our desires and aversions, wanting only what is within our power and turning away only from what truly harms our character. This is the ultimate liberation. Your journey starts not with a grand overhaul, but with a single, deliberate choice. Which of these practices will you weave into the fabric of your tomorrow? Will it be the 5-second pause before you react, the evening review of your day, the mental shift to see a difficulty as a training ground? Do not try to do everything at once. Choose one, practice it with consistency. A small step repeated daily builds the momentum for profound and lasting change. Share in the comments which principle resonated most deeply with you. Your insight might be the very thing that helps another person find their footing, building a community dedicated to the quiet, powerful work of building a resilient life.